Yo, what's up, Jordan?
What's up, Sam?
Not much, man. Very excited to have our guest on today, Mr. Evan Bethea, the Events and Activations Manager at SoundCloud. At SoundCloud, Evan is responsible for helping create this really unique series of events that takes place all over the world that brings together a community of SoundCloud listeners so that they can create and connect with each other. Prior to working at SoundCloud, Evan has worked at some incredible different agencies. Blue Flame, Diddy's agency, worked with Bad Boy. He also worked, while there, he was working as kind of project manager, content, overseeing a lot of different content production. He also worked at VaynerMedia, which is where we used to cross paths because he was project manager for Pepsi. I was working in a division called Vayner Talent, both working for the guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, who founded the company, a very, very smart and talented marketer. He also worked at, Evan also worked at Ogilvy. So I think in today's episode, really excited because he has a lot of experience as a marketer, so has seen the evolution of a lot of different tactics and what makes sense to include in the marketing mix now versus what used to make sense. So we talk about general market shifts when it comes to marketing. We talk about his perspective on kind of working in big corporations versus working in smaller companies that might be able to move a little bit faster. I really enjoyed having this conversation with him. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think we talked from a macro level about, the things that kept him hungry in the music industry, which I thought was awesome. But one thing I really liked that we talked about was community and a sense of building community. I think that's something me and you try to do on the podcast a lot. And at some point during the podcast, I literally took my iPad out and was taking notes like, okay, that's actually a really good idea, because we actually got so deep into it. We forgot our questions and just started brainstorming about really creative ideas to engage people. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely one of my favorite episodes because I learned a lot. So
for sure. Well, without any further ado, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Evan, welcome to the show, man. How you feeling?
Feeling great, man. Can't complain at all.
Very excited to have you on. No, we used to cross paths a lot in the halls of VaynerMedia a couple years ago.
Sure did.
Feels like a long ass time ago. So
right?
I was grateful for the experience, but don't miss it now. Ain't firing shots. No, it was a beautiful experience. Still in very close touch with a lot of the incredible people from there.
Yeah, same here.
With that said, can you talk a little bit about, even before you were, now you're at SoundCloud doing awesome stuff there, but even before Vayner, you were working at Bad Boy. Could you just talk a little bit about kind of how you got into the world of music? And then I know you bounced in and out a little bit. So just starting with the bird's eye view of your kind of career path today would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a really interesting kind of like start to my career. I, right out of college, I jumped on a plane right after crossing the stage. To intern for Bad Boy, which was like, I was like, wow, like this is like, I can't believe I'm doing this, just like moving to the big city, coming from North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So I started as a intern at Blue Flame Agency, which is Diddy's in-house marketing agency at the time that really focused on Ciroc as its lead brand, but also it touched on all of Puff's brands, from Sean John to his personal, to launching the water with Aquahydrate, to launching a television network with Revolt. So I started there, and as that intern at the time, I was working mainly on Facebook and social media at the time, where it was kind of like the new Wild Wild West, and people were still trying to figure out Facebook and Twitter. Instagram wasn't even really out yet. But I was doing more community management on posts, kind of figuring out, cadence schedules, and then working with Diageo on the Ciroc brand. So I did that for about a year and a half to 2 years, really focused on the social stuff. I was, blessed enough to be able to get an opportunity to go from intern to actually holding a position as, at the time, it was just a digital marketing coordinator. My role then switched from doing social to moving towards the owned and paid side of things. Mm-hmm. So from developing Ciroc.com to managing relationships with like media partners such as like Complex, like working with ESPN on product launches for Ciroc and for Puff. So it was a very kind of just thrown into the fire, starts my career, which is fun. You know, you kind of like hit the ground running. You have to fail to learn. I did a lot of that. Did a lot just trying to figure it out.
Totally.
So yeah, I did that for about 2 to 3 years. I wanted to kind of get experience on what it would like, because at the time it was a very small agency. I wanted to get experience on at a bigger agency level. So I had an opportunity to work at Ogilvy company called Geometry Global. At the time, I did shopper marketing for Unilever, which was interesting. You know, I learned a lot there too on kind of like couponing, how kind of like the world works in consumer packaged goods. So it was great. I did that for about a year. I had an opportunity to go back. So I've kind of called the team back, rallied the troops, said, look, we need that old thing back. So we went back.
I'm thinking about that documentary when he did that, when he was calling everybody to perform at his show or whatever, the Bad Boy reunion tour. I'm just thinking about that with just like employees right now. Like, yo, I know you doing your thing, man, but we coming back, man. We back, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, man. That was good. That was a fun time, I'll tell you. I wasn't expecting that call, but you know, it was good. This time, I worked closer. I was more of a digital content producer at this time, so I was able to do more on the video production, hiring teams, photographers, videographers, actually creating the narrative and the having more like creative influence on the things that we were doing at the time. So again, came back, left geometry, then went back to work for Blue Flame again. And again, this time like a lot cooler. Like did more like photo shoot, video shoot production. So I got really kind of into that world and I loved it. So did that for about another year and a half. So all in all, I probably worked there for like 4.5, 5 years. Then this when we crossed paths, I left there and started working at Vayner as a project manager for Pepsi. So with that, I worked on Pure Leaf, I worked on Mountain Dew, Quaker Oats, got a lot of Quaker recipes now.
There it is.
You know? Did that for a little bit.
That pause after Quaker Oats too. I work for Quaker Oats.
Yeah. What's
Mic
up?
drop.
What you know about them?
Y'all know that? Y'all know about that?
What you know about them energy bites? Yeah, bro. So yeah, did that. You know,
I work for Puff and Quaker Oats, bro.
Right. Got recipes for days.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Did that and did that for about a year and some change. And I had opportunity to go to SoundCloud. I mean, when that opportunity crossed my path, I could not say no, because I remember sitting at the office at Bad Boy with one of my good friends, old colleague, Los Antonio, and we would be in the back of the office, you know, bumping tunes like mad loud, and people would be like, what is this song? Like, what is this mix? I'm like, Joe, don't worry about it. I got a source. Yeah. And we were all like, we were just diving deep into SoundCloud.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just
had
like,
that phase.
You know,
damn, you didn't even tell him? You just said, don't worry about it? I ain't gonna tell you, bro. Don't worry about where I got it, bro.
I got the plug. What's up? Yeah.
You want to listen to it, you come to me, bro.
Yeah. I'll handle that. But yeah, no, I did that. It was great, man. Like, and then like, that's like, you know, it was something different when you like do the research, you find tracks. I mean, it was like, I was like, yeah, man, I would love to work at this place, and, you know, interviewed there and got the job, you know, and I've been there for 2 years strong, started as an integrated marketing manager / events and activations manager.
That's awesome. So when it comes to the SoundCloud and that opportunity coming about, I think a lot of people that listen like want to work in the music industry. Some of them are running their own businesses and they're trying to take the entrepreneurial path, and others are taking on really unique jobs. Maybe they want to be entrepreneurs down the road, maybe not. Regardless, how did the SoundCloud opportunity like fully come about? I mean, obviously a lot of the experience you had to date helped you become a really strong candidate. But as for people that are listening that are trying to think about how they can get jobs at cool companies within the music industry, it'd be cool to hear the actual story as to how that actualized.
Well, really, I mean, I think in my career, in my life, networking is key. So I had in the music industry, had, a bunch of close colleagues, friends that, branched off from working at Bad Boy or at Blue Flame. So I had an old colleague that had sent an email because they saw that SoundCloud was hiring. There was, at the time, SoundCloud was going through a rough patch. They just kind of reinvested and were doing like a big hire. So there was a position that kind of fit my expertise. So my old colleague sent over the job description, and I like jumped at it, and crazy thing about how small this world is in networking is like the VP at the time used to work at Sean John. So it's like, that goes to show you how small the world is.
The
just
VP
keeping
of
those.
SoundCloud?
No, yes, the VP, the marketing, he was the vice president of global marketing at the time.
Right.
He used to work directly with the president of Combs Enterprise at the time. So knowing that I worked closely with them kind of already had me in a position to where I could have someone vouch for me, because I've worked in the industry with somebody that's worked the same job before. So it's really just keeping those relationships tight, never burning bridges, just like always try to stay positive and maintain those relationships, because those will eventually maybe one day get you to a place that you really, really thought you want to work. Which, like right now at SoundCloud, I was like, I'd love to work there.
Yeah.
I've actually got a few questions just from our listeners about how to network. The one thing that I always tell people in situations, especially like that, isn't necessarily be buddy with the people at the top. It's be cool with everybody, because somebody who works under you could end up working for them. I've seen it happen time and time again. So I'll be out to coffee with people who listen to the podcast, and they'll be like, "What's your advice on networking?" I'm like, just be nice to everybody. Like, I was like, literally, I could be working for you. Like, you're asking me how to network. 3 years from now, you could have a company I want to work for, So I just, hope people don't forget about that. It's not always like aiming for the top. It's also, being with your peers and networking with your peers.
I totally agree with that. I mean, that was one of the biggest things. As soon as I got through the door, it was just try to meet everyone. I don't, like, the title to me didn't really matter. Being fresh from North Carolina to move to New York, it's just like picking people's brains, like you say, you never know where you'll be 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
And just staying positive and just, having a good rapport.
Right.
Say hi to everyone in the office, or your peers. Take time to go, like you said, go get coffee.
Right.
Learn about the person.
Right.
They'll keep you top of mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So at SoundCloud, where's your focus at right now? And I mean, as far as like the role, the responsibilities, what you're trying to make happen there?
Well, right now, events and activations are a big key part of my job. So we have recently activated a new series called our SoundCloud Creator Forum, which it's kind of like a road show that goes around to different markets, our priority, like key markets that, we see that there's a lot of listeners and activity. And our job there is really just to like empower the creator to create and kind of network with like-minded individuals that, want to get into music, or may not be, like a top producer, but like they're kind of like the bedroom producer that has fire beats that maybe need they need vocals on it, or they need somebody to help with production. Like, we want to bring the creators out and essentially create a SoundCloud community, that the same community that you have online with sharing and reposting tracks and kind of sharing music. We want to create that in real life. So create that experience. So we've been doing that since our first activation of this was down at A3C in Atlanta. We did it at a really dope space. It was Mike Will's studio space in Atlanta. So what we do is essentially there's 3 days worth of activations. We have first day is like our networking opportunity for people to come out and network, meet people. Sometimes we have, partners involved. Like we've had Denon, we've had like FL Studios, Fruity Loop Studios, kind of like debut their products there at the forum. We work with Dolby as well. And then from there, it's just really that day is just about having people connect, letting people know that we're there. The second day is more along the lines of, and these are interchangeable days, but just the 3 days. Second day would be a panel day to where we have industry experts talk about kind of like this. It's like, just talk about their stories on how to like really brand, how to create their music, what it's like to be in the industry so that people, can be inspired, and it gives them, drive to create more, and like, let them know that, we're here for the educational aspect of the music as well. And then day 3 is just the showcase. So we take like local talent, that are heavy on our platform and that have that social influence in their communities that may be up and coming, may already be pretty successful. And we have them perform, do a showcase. Miami's, there was DJs. It was really DJ focused. There was no like performance. But in Atlanta, we had artists like to perform, like Key was like our headliner in Atlanta. Slim Jimmy came through. I mean, it was his kind of like his studio, which is cool.
Yeah. How do people get involved with that? Like if somebody's on SoundCloud, how do people get involved?
Really, it's through email, through our database. We share invites via our social channels. We send out emails to listeners that are active on the platform. You sign up for your account. It's in our system. We know you're listening. We know you're in the area. Send you an email if you catch it. Come through. We, obviously we encourage you there to be there, and then also on social. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really fun. We've been doing that. Our next one's in Toronto.
Nice.
That'll be in February. Shameless plug. February 19th to the 20th. Come through.
No, it's not a shameless plug. We got you on here, man. Plug away, bro. Plug away, bro.
Yeah.
How often are these events?
So again, this first one started in October. We've done Atlanta. We did Amsterdam for like electronic scene, and we did Miami during Art Basel. So this next one is Toronto, February. So they've been like about once a month, once every 2 months.
Once a month, yeah, once a month.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they've been wildly successful in my eyes. Just to see people passionate about their craft and come together, and we're there to help support in their journey, whatever it may be, as a creator.
What's something that you've learned at any of the places that you've worked that kind of is the thread that kind of ties them all together, just in terms of like working in the industry, or, you said something about networking, kind of along those lines, especially working with Puff.
Yeah. I think one of the keys that I get would be just kind of like not being scared to fail, always having an open mind to learn. Because, there's every day there's something new, and especially within music where it's like we're in such a fast moving space, and music's always changing, consumption of music's always changing. So it's just like always just studying up, keeping a fresh, open mind, and, and just working hard, and just know that like there's the hustle is like, a hustle is a real thing, like always, always try to project positivity, and just like, just being your work ethic, always just being on it, responsive, communicating, over share.
Yeah, you just said studying. I actually just learned recently that I need to get back to doing that, because, I used to do that when I was younger, before I worked in the industry. It was like I was on blogs every day, looking at news every day, and then you work in it, and then it's like, oh, you start focusing on your work, but you still need to be in the community of the music industry, So now I commit time every morning, 30 minutes to an hour, just to like read news. I'm sure you could tell this morning, Sam, because I was like sending y'all text messages about news articles and stuff like that this morning. But, I think that's something that I encourage everybody to do, and do every single day,
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's big. The study. I mean, I remember as an intern, my old boss used to have me, as part of my like duties as an intern, was to like check out TechCrunch, Mashable, and like get these articles and like read them and like present them back to him.
Brief him?
Yeah, like brief him. Like, what did you
present to him? Damn, that's
like,
tight, yo.
Yeah, like, what did you learn today? It was dope. I mean, I learned so much crazy stuff. Right. And I'm informing him about what's on the news. So I'm sure he'd read the news, but maybe I caught something he didn't.
Right.
See.
He could go back and read up on it.
Yeah, and I did like sometimes I even at later on down the line, I did like a little newsletter that went out to the company about like fire stuff from the news. So like I would just go to TechCrunch, Mashable, like again, like Ad Age, or like whatever that media company was or whatever to get the news, and I would just send that out.
Right.
To people, and it'll be all digital focused.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. When it comes to I mean, you've been working in the field of marketing for a minute. I mean, between Bad Boy and the big agencies, and then back to Bad Boy, and now kind of marketing at SoundCloud. You've seen a lot of shifts, I'm sure. I mean, I think social media, I mean, isn't like brand new, but even within then the approach at which you use it, I'm sure has changed. Can you talk about some of the different changes you've seen throughout the years and some things that you're really, I guess, conscious of right now?
For sure. Like, I mean, one thing is the influencer, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I remember, so when like Instagram came out, there was just like that heavy, back in like, I'd say like 2013, 2014, around the time Instagram came out, it was like this big, heavy, like the influencers, everything, right? And like, just like that, brands like kind of like spending a lot of money on influencers, and they're being like, they would always say like organic ads, organic, putting content and making it feel organic, like it's like part of their everyday life.
Right.
I personally feel like that is kind of like died off. So it's came and then it's kind of like went away because, it's like the sellout kind of people think, oh yeah, it's like, like if you can find a way to do it now, like they'll, brands still do pay influencers. But like, I just think that I've seen that trend kind of like spike and then kind of like fall a little bit, which is interesting. Let's see, I think just, I'd say, I don't know, I'd say Twitter. Twitter's still for like news, but like, like I saw a lot of like brand dollars being spent on like paid tweets and things like that. Again, these are still like marketing techniques that like, or tactics that are still used this day, are still super effective.
Right.
But like, at least the brands that I've worked for, like kind of like budget shifts, right? So like the spends from brands went from like, digital was kind of like Wild Wild West, don't know what it is, not gonna like spend a lot of money. Like Facebook ads became a little bit more easier to use for more people like on a lower level, whereas before it was like on brands only. So like seeing like those dollars, people investing more into digital, like because they weren't unsure of it, and now it's like if you don't do it, you're like, you don't have a full marketing campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not getting the reach.
It's not even getting the reach.
Right.
Like, and like before it was like, you just do like, it was just out of home, like, like digital, like, emailers and things like that. Those were like that was your media marketing mix. And like now digital is like such a heavy piece to the puzzle that like if you don't have it, and then some people just don't even realize the other stuff is really still effective, but like you still need everything.
Yeah.
And
I remember
just focus on digital.
I remember when people didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like people, I remember even when I, started college, I guess was 7 years ago at this point, people would say they did social media companies. It was like, oh shit, he doing social media.
Yeah,
it
like
wasn't like a thing, you know what I mean? Now it's like, oh shit, you like a digital marketer.
Right.
It's like the whole thing has changed,
Yep.
And careers, people getting rich off of it now. Before it was like people used to pay people like, $10 an hour, $11 an hour to like run social media campaigns, at least from my eyes. When I was seeing my friends do it. And now it's like a well-paying job because you gotta, a lot of people are into it now, and you gotta know the ins and outs of everything in order to be successful, as opposed to just like posting on Twitter once a day.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. Yeah, like I remember talking like, wow, this is like, at the time it was like a job that was like wasn't making too much.
Yeah,
and now it's like, that's like an important job. Yeah. Like that person is like controlling the narrative of your brand to get millions of impressions online. Whereas before, like the eyes weren't really there. They were there, but they were just for a demographic that was like younger. Right. Now everybody's on this shit.
Right.
When you think about like IRL activations, how are you evaluating the success of those now from a marketing perspective?
Honestly, I think as sentiment is everything, right? So like the sentiment that you're getting, like the chatter that you're getting surrounding the event real time in real life, as well as online. Obviously hashtags, we still use those, right? When we communicate. So just kind of like just seeing that sentiment online, and then emails. Like, when people come to an event, like they sign with their email, and it's just like we'll communicate with them afterwards. Like we don't want to just show up and then leave them dry.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
We're there for a reason. We want to really connect and stay connected. So I think the valuable thing is this, like the success is just keeping in touch with those that want to be a part of SoundCloud and just kind of continuing that communication down the line.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, for event-based marketing, any sort of like in real life activations, the more ingratiated people have become with like social media and the more time they spend, the more valuable these like events that pull people away from their phones to connect with other human beings, the value increases on those. So I think even not only the ability that you can facilitate like cool networking moments where other people can meet other like-minded cool people, but ultimately it's kind of building this deeper personal connection with the brand.
And we've sort of seen that in the touring industry too. How, ticket prices have gone up because even though we're more connected on our phones, people value real life experiences more now than they ever have because everybody's connected on their phones.
Agreed.
So
when you think of, this is a question for both of you guys, but just obviously musicians, it's critical to tour, but is there room to like innovate and bring together community outside of touring? And are there any specific events you guys have seen of artists doing that?
I honestly haven't seen it happen too often.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which artist I was thinking about that did this, but they had a listening event.
Illmind? He does Pass the Aux.
Yeah, he does Pass the Aux. But I'm thinking of an artist that had like a listening event, and they somehow chose a fan of people that were curated, and it wasn't just like an event that was shot out to people in the industry. Yeah, and it kind of helped build a community, and then they filmed the entire thing, and then that came out as like a music video.
That's cool. We did that. We did that for Chelsea Cutler and Jeremy Zucker, two bigger artists. One of our past guests, Harrison Remler. There's some of his like managees, if you will. But we wanted to do a live acoustic recording of 5 songs. So what we did was instead of just having them in a studio by themselves, they posted on their Instagram intimate listening event for this recent EP for first 100 people or for 100 people in New York. Within like an hour or two, the list got filled. And then we were able to have like a live audience, which created not only a cool setting and atmosphere for the video, but also it's like that live IRL activation.
That's dope.
Yeah, it worked out well.
I think it would be highly personal to do this, but I think it'd also be cool to weave music with something else that people can do with the artists. Like, I don't know, play games with the artist or something like that.
Yeah.
Or watch a movie. One of my best experiences, in the industry was I saw The Warriors. That's what the movie's called.
Yeah.
Come out to play. I saw that in a movie theater. It's really popular. It's in Williamsburg. I'm forgetting the name of it right now. With
Nighthawk.
Yes, Nighthawk with Run the Jewels and Nas in the movie theater.
That's fine.
And there was a bunch of fans in there. At the time I interned at Mass Appeal, but there was a bunch of people. It was an exclusive event, but it wasn't like we were all, and then Nas premiered a song at the end in front of us, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But Killer Mike wasn't up there rapping necessarily. We were all watching a movie together, hearing Killer Mike's live reaction. Like something like that.
That's crazy.
That's super cool.
That could be cool.
Yeah, and I feel like it goes back to a lot of the foundational element of what we talk about in marketing, whether it's like the approach when we had the episode with Nate Auerbach recently, or even just kind of what we'll do at Knox, is like the foundation of all your marketing should really be like, who are you as a person, or what are you as a brand? What do you stand for? On the artist side, it's easier because you can play to the actual like interests of the artist. So if it's a movie event, if you love movies or a certain type of movies, why not activate your fans around this shared interest? Or it's like whatever random interests you have, bring people together. Board games, fuck it. Like,
That's interesting. It's funny you said that on, I think it was on last Thursday, we had an artist come in. His name was, I can't remember his name at the time, but what his thing was, he was big into plant-based foods. Cool. And, he's from the South. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. And he brought in food for us to eat. And it was like having like a soul food, like family time. And we all sat around. We ate first. We even said prayer around the food. We ate.
Damn.
Whatever. And as we're eating, chilling, talking, he's playing his music, giving us the rundown of why he made some of the songs he did.
Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome.
Dinero Farrar.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's super cool. Yeah, I think it's interesting because how well you can create a stronger connection with your super fans and mobilize them to become your advocates is, I mean, they're going to be your biggest marketers, if you will. Like we're all three marketers. It's like find ways to activate and mobilize people that care about your brand the most. So if you can create these like exclusive experiences and really connect at a deeper level around plant-based food or whatever it may be, like that to me is like no brainer. Even Gary Vaynerchuk, for the listeners, like the guy that Evan and I used to work for, he does a fantastic job at identifying who are his most influential followers and brings them into the office. Sometimes just to give like
low key writing this down right now.
Taking
notes on
it could be like it could be
damn.
tours of the office, or for the bigger ones like FaceTime with Gary. But yeah, getting creative around how you can nurture that connection is super valuable. I'm even trying to brainstorm and figure out more tactical ways.
It's like, damn, we out here having a marketing meeting on the podcast.
That's dope.
That's awesome. So what are you most excited about? Not only as far as kind of your career, but even to just like market shifts that you feel are taking place or that will?
That's a good question. I think, career wise, I think, obviously events, I'm looking forward to those, which is good. I mean, there's going to be a lot. We're hitting up Europe this year, potentially. So hopefully, fingers crossed that gets done and I'm over there. I've only been to Europe twice, so that'll be exciting. But as far as like industry, I think I'm like curious to see what augmented reality AR is going to do. Mm-hmm. I think the future, it's an interesting place, right? With like how field of vision marketing could happen. Mm-hmm. Like I know that back a couple years ago, like Google goggles, Google glasses at the time.
Google Glass.
Yeah, that
biggest
like,
flop of the.
It was like a that was a huge flop. but I wouldn't rule it out, right?
Yeah,
because like I don't know. I think there's validity in like some like old movies. Like when you see old movies,
it will happen,
right?
I think for that it was just that specific product was a little before its time. I think once the technology is there and it's stronger, like there's motorcycle helmets where you can actually get like GPS like over here and shit.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
that's in movies. I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, but my bad.
No, yeah, like I think that augmented reality. That's and like the VR stuff. Mm-hmm. I just think that if you look at trends in movies, if you look at like Back to the Future, you had. At the time, back that was like the early 90s. Mm-hmm. There was to talk to somebody on the television was wild crazy.
Yeah.
Like it was like, what in the world? There's somebody's face on the other side of the screen. We FaceTime each other every day.
Yeah, not just walking down the street.
Yeah. So like
it was wild.
You have movies like Her.
Yeah.
Where there's a human being having a full-on relationship with a computer.
Yeah.
Like, and computers are getting smart as shit.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, that scared the fuck out of me. I was like, yo, I don't want this to happen.
Right.
I don't want nobody to be cool or like a made up person cool enough. Wait, what do you fall in love with Siri? Like, but then you can get Siri to market for you.
Yeah. And they're always listening and all that. So, I don't know. It's just, it's causing
it's interesting for sure. I mean, we had one guest on, Sherry Hu, who is a technologist. She is a journalist at the intersection of tech and music, and was speaking about how we're really just at the kind of, the tip of the iceberg as far as augmented reality and virtual reality and artists and music kind of venturing into that space, and referenced a couple of times when there were like virtual concerts by like Marshmello or certain artists, and that would help them break records on getting songs to stream. I think I wouldn't be surprised too. If you look at technology in my eyes, oftentimes it's not necessarily creating new goals, but it helps us achieve and do what we want to do with less friction. Mm-hmm. Like even FaceTime, right? It's like I enjoy, like humans are social creatures. We want to be with each other. This way there's less friction in us being with each other when we're not co-located. I think, some sort of like VR experience where we're actually like chilling together, like at the movie together and like a VR,
Well,
like or at a concert together.
Like
it's
right
like,
now, you can watch basketball games with people.
Yeah,
really.
Or like your Avi will be sitting next to another Avi, and like you're like court. You can buy courtside seats to like Lakers games.
That's crazy.
Are you trying to go see the Lakers game tonight after the podcast, guys?
I don't even know how much they would charge for something like that.
That's dumb.
But all these things change the landscape, right? And that's what makes it so exciting. That's why what you do, I think, is really exciting too, because you get to be on the tail end of these things as they happen and think, how do we make this work for us in a good way? Obviously, I do too as a manager, but I it's not. I gotta worry about a bunch of things. You know what I'm saying? I also gotta worry about an artist getting from A to B just that day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my attention is a little bit split.
And this artist blowing me up.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. Which brings up another interesting question, a thought thing I wanted to ask you, but like, having worked across like a very corporate domain, like I guess to some extent Vayner, especially on I guess like Ogilvy's side, versus Bad Boy and SoundCloud. I mean, those aren't like super small companies by any means, but they are a little more like in this kind of like music world versus this more traditional corporate world. What have you seen as being some of kind of like the pros and cons or of each worlds that you've tried to kind of combine the best of the both?
Right. Yeah, that's a really dope question. I think reason being like, starting off at a smaller company, smaller in relativity of like, most like bigger agencies.
Right.
Blue Flame is super small. It was like only like 20 people, maybe, if I can remember correctly.
Right.
But you're doing work of that. There's a lot bigger teams. So you have to be a little bit more shifty. You have to kind of think more on your feet a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more creative. You have to think about how to do bigger things with a little less resources on hand at smaller companies. And then you have like larger companies like Ogilvy that's huge and has like full creative teams all the way in like Chicago and we're in New York, and you have all types of director positions, kind of like Vayner, like, has directors, managers, VPs all sitting dedicated to one brand budget because, obviously budgets are bigger.
Right.
And with that, when things are a little bit bigger, for me in my experience, creativity gets decreased a little bit more because you have process to follow because you're trying to get shit out the door.
Right.
Right. And, like, I think there's give and takes. I mean, there's like pros and cons to each one. Like the larger companies, again, more process, more, but you're getting something that's a little bit more, maybe a little bit more polished or a little bit more like packaged because it's like a manufacturing line. Whereas when things are like, you're just trying to get them done, they're more guerrilla. They feel a little bit more like authentic, like raw, kind of like, and like even SoundCloud, like we like to think of ourselves as not necessarily super polished brand wise, like packaged up because we're, we appeal to those everyday, people that are making music. Like sometimes like booths, like booths home studios aren't the prettiest studios,
right. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Totally. So yeah, I think there's just like, it's give and take. Or not give and take, I'm sorry, pros and cons.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think it's in my experience too, there's a lot more. I mean, it was interesting because I've actually never really worked for a major. Even while I was at Vayner, I worked at like a startup division within Vayner. Yeah. So I guess it was kind of like a happy medium. I mean, it definitely had more of like a corporate influence, but it was fundamentally different. But even just like music versus non-music, I think a lot of times it's, there's a lot, I would almost say sometimes that there's a lot more things are way more urgent. And I think urgent is really due to a lack of good planning.
In which one?
In music worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure. Damn, yo, shit.
No, with all love. I mean, if it's anything, it's, we were like brainstorming with our team, the notion of like, as we're trying to strengthen our agency and create the most impact possible, how can we avoid urgency, but also accept the inevitability of urgency, given that that's just the way how this industry operates?
Well, yeah, I think that's how music, and it's like if you think about like sometimes tracks get made on the dime, like, right? Like, yeah. And you have to react to, that's a fire track. We need to get that out now.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't want to lose the momentum.
That's what I was going to say. I think a lot of the urgency comes from dealing with people and it being like a people business.
Right.
Like, for a big agency that's representing a brand necessarily. The brand can't say, actually, no, you know what? Fuck it. I want to switch it up and then put it out tomorrow. Like a human being can. And then you have to just like figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
No, it brings me back to the episode with Alex Kramer. She was like music business itself is like oxymoronic because you have like business, which is this very rational, like operations minded endeavor versus like music, which is this artistic endeavor. And if you let the business overwhelm the artistic creative side, then you're just wringing it dry, completely dry, losing all the essence. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you think music, like the music drives a culture, which then drives, you know, like bigger brands really, because they're trying to figure out this demographic of like the younger, like early adapters and like those that are going to be influential down the line. Like you get the buying power. And it's like, if you hit them with music and like something that's cool to them, like, and there's so much emotion that's involved in the music. Like music is super, super important. A lot of people, they, you know, it's like hidden. Like I realized it after working in the industry. I listen to music when I'm happy, when I'm eating, when I'm partying. Like music is involved in so many different aspects of your life that drive like how you even dress. Like the music that you listen to. Yeah. So it's like it can be, and then, you know, music is like trendy. Like there's always trends in music. So it's just like trends in fashion. Yeah. So like when you find the trend in music, that can like, that drives like bigger business, like in buying different other things. Totally. Lovely,
how do you in your role level yourself up? How do you make sure that you're always, you know, doing your best? Just from a marketing standpoint.
I think it's just staying at like the pulse of what's new and like what's next, and like kind of just being aware, staying active, not necessarily like still going out and seeing what's hitting like out and being out, you know, and doing different industry things here and there. Also checking in, also staying with, shout out to my old boss, you know, on top of the digital news, and just making sure that you're reading, like you said, articles on new technology and what's next. So that when conversations arise, you have at least something, you know what it is, and you're not totally in the dark. You have a starting point.
Right. For sure.
That's how I feel with music when songs come out or when artists are popping. Oh, you haven't heard of what? I get embarrassed every time. I'm like, damn, you're right. Shit. I should have heard of them. Like, damn.
It's like, I need to get on my SoundCloud.
Yeah, you haven't heard of that. Happened with Pop Smoke. I got
Party.
Party. Oh yeah, and Party, bro. Some people slip through the cracks. And Pop Smoke, I got on relatively early, but the person that grilled me was like Slow Tie, so it was especially embarrassing. Yeah, damn. Slow Tie was like, "Yo, you ain't heard of Pop Smoke?" I was like, "Damn, you from the UK and you tell me about somebody that lives down the street from me? Like this can't happen."
That's that whole grime thing. I mean, right now, grime in the UK that styles, that genre is popping in the US right now. Yeah. So for him to get on that and like
crazy,
it's awesome. And all that, like
But you got to be like that and everything. You know, whatever your thing is. Yeah. You know, if you, like you said, if you're in marketing, you got to be on Mashable, on TechCrunch, figuring out what's trending, what's the next thing. Because I read this book also, So Good They Can't Ignore You.
Cal Newport,
yeah, and he says in that, in order to be, you know, truly innovative and creative, you have to know everything as it happens, because that's how you see around the corner.
Right.
You know?
For sure.
So, yeah.
True.
Dope. Well, Evan, man, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited for all the work you're doing and the trajectory you're on, man. It's fun.
Awesome, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
You know, looking forward to, you know, see you guys have on next.
Likewise, bro. Cheers, man. Thank you, Evan. We out.
Thank you. Peace.
Man, that was a dope episode, man.
Fire!
Like I said in the intro, one of my favorite episodes. He's a good person to talk to also, you know. A lot of these people, and I told him this before, a lot of these people that we interview don't necessarily have too much experience being on podcasts. And I almost think that makes for better conversation, because we literally forgot the mic was there. All of us did, clearly, you know. So I didn't care that the mic was there when I took out my iPad and I started taking notes, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love the idea we came up with there. Just really starting to brainstorm how you can activate your audience outside of shows. I think that's a very unique way to nurture the relationship with some of your closest fans who can become your biggest advocates and ambassadors.
Yeah, and as we were talking about it and just going through the history of social media and, you know, the rise of the social media marketer to the digital marketer to the digital manager, I thought was also a pretty unique perspective too. And he's gotten to be that person the entire time. He's gotten to be the person who, you know, wasn't getting paid that much and didn't expect to get paid that much being a social media manager to actually, you know, being a really important part of the team as social media, not just social media, but digital marketing in general got bigger. So
totally, 100%. Dope. We'll see y'all next week.
Hey man, I just want to shout out again Bands in Town. We're coming up on our year anniversary with the Music Business Podcast in February, and I just want to take the time out to thank everybody who's listened. I don't care if you've listened 10 minutes or 10 episodes or all of our episodes, and especially, you know, shout out Bands in Town. Me and Sam, when we started this, we didn't really have an idea of getting any sponsors because we just didn't think anybody would be interested at first. You know, that's just how that's how it is when you start things, and they've really come on as a great partner for us. So it was a very, you know, organic fit. Like I've told you guys, I use Bands in Town every day, so I just want to shout them out, and I want to shout you guys out, man. I'm starting to get reflective, man. It's almost been a year, you know. Doing it, man. We doing it, y'all.
We love y'all. Leave a review.
All right, guys.
Peace.